Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. Good morning. Good morning. So I am super excited because I have Nurse Coach Bina here with me. So Nurse Coach Bina, first, before we get started, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, give us feedback as to what you think about the podcast, because we would love to hear your feedback. So next, Nurse Coach Bina, tell us who you are in your own words.
Well, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on and letting me be on. So my name is Nurse Coach Bina, and what I do is I help parents with special needs by enhancing wellness programs in large organizations. And it's been a real drive for me and really getting the word out and helping these parents with special needs in any community, and really focusing in on the large organizations so that way they get the support that they need, and then the large organizations are able to fund it as well.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, so we're going to get into the reason why you have that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up even being a nurse. Like, what made you want to do that?
I've always wanted to be a nurse when I was a child. I had that passion when I was 3 years old. I would put scrapes and things and I'd be like, oh, I know how to fix this. And it was always just energetically, I just knew what to do in a stressful situation. And this developed real early on as me being a teenager and growing up. And I remember I knew I wanted to be either a nurse or a doctor. And I remember having a large conversation with my father, and he's like, do you really want to go through all that school? And I'm like, no, you're right. I really don't. I'm not going to lie. I want to be like with the people. I want to talk with people. I want to educate. I want to be hands-on versus like, hey, here you go. Okay, peace out. Bye. And that's really where my passion lies. But what my passion lies with the real life with special kids and helping parents with special kids is because I have 3 beautiful children and they all have special needs. And my passion really did drive when my eldest son was born. And being a nurse and having a child with special needs, a lot of people were telling me, you're a nurse, you know how to handle this, you know what to do. When in reality, I was a brand new mom and I had no idea what to do because the mama bear was kicking in, and every single possibility that can go wrong, which it did go, unfortunately, it did go wrong with my son. But all those scenarios of me being an ER nurse came, like, I was like, well, what happens if this is and everyone's like, you're overreacting. You're a nurse. He's going to be fine. And I said, there's something's wrong. And so that feeling of not being heard really kicked in, which actually really did trigger my postpartum, because that's where, like, even before leaving the hospital, I remember this doctor, I was telling her, I was like, something's wrong with my son. And she goes, you are fine. It's fine. He's going in. It's your nursing background. You're going to be okay. And I kept telling her, I said, ma'am, something is wrong. My son is flaccid, which means like his muscle tone was thing. He wasn't really reacting. And I remember the nurses they even called the psych doctor on me, telling me, they were telling me, they're like, she's going things because I made a big scene. Well, one of the nurses finally was just like, can you just take his blood sugar? They're like, would that make you feel better? I said, please, something. Can you please do something? Because I feel like something's wrong. When they took his blood sugar, and granted, 20 minutes prior, this same doctor gave my son the clean bill of health and was ready to send me out the door, and they were pushing me to go out the door. As soon as that nurse got his blood sugar, my son's blood sugar was 15.
Wow.
Which in neonatal world, just for all you guys know, that is critically low.
That
And
is crazy.
And all because they kept telling me I had psych on the unit. I mean, I had the whole, like, everyone thought I was crazy at this point until my voice was heard. And the minute I came in, that doctor came back into the room. And I remember this to this day. That doctor's like, he was fine 20 minutes ago. I said, he was not fine for 6 hours. You weren't listening to me.
There's no way in the world that he could have been fine 20 minutes ago if he had blood sugar of 15. That's number one.
No.
Number two, I am so glad that and that's one of the things that, we talk about a lot. So, not such a fun fact, but fact is that I have a niece who is in the hospital and she is in a coma. Okay. And, she has been, the reality is that her family has been at her bedside the entire time. Like, I'm getting ready actually probably next weekend to go give them a break because of the fact that, you have to stay at that bedside. You have to be very intentional. And I talked about this previously on one of our MERT team, because we have a medical emergency response team at church.
Right.
And one of the things that I talked about is, we need to really, really be intentional about being advocates for our family, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you would have taken that child home and he would have died.
He would have died. No, and there's no questions. And if it was any other person, because I was being told, there was a huge scene. They told my husband to calm me down. I had some of my old coworkers came up because they're like, oh, let me see if someone from the ER can maybe talk some sense into Bina. And they all were like, she's very intuitive. Like, just take the blood sugar. Like, just let her, like, just do it. And so when they did, that same doctor came back. And I had to kick her out. I said, no, thank you. You will not touch my son. You've already tried to kill him, not once, not twice, but 5 times at this point. And I want another doctor. And they're like, well, there's no other doctor. I said, so I pushed the code blue button. I said, there will be another doctor now.
I know that's right.
But I'm like, there will be another doctor now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, there's 15 doctors in the ER right now. One of them can come up, but I will not let you touch my child. And then she did it. I refrained it. And then after that, it was like, oh my God, that mom, like, everyone was like, had this big old scene, right? And I was just like, but I know something is wrong. It's that mother's intuition. And it's not even that. It's just more that advocacy of, like, and this is the start of my child's life, right? And after that, like, we've gone through so many struggles and everyone's like, oh, you're a nurse, you know what to do. And I'm like, no, I don't. I still don't, you guys. I really don't. But it's also, once we realized that he was globally challenged, we learned that he wasn't hitting the milestones. We've learned that he was medically challenged. And then at work, I was called to be the nurse that called in sick all the time. The sick, I was the problematic one. I even heard it on some of, like, when I called in, oh, there's Bina calling in again. That's her number. And I was like, it makes you feel like condoned, right? You're feeling like already guilty, comes in. And I'm like, and this is healthcare. This is healthcare. Like, we're supposed to be at our best to support the people who are at their worst. But you want us to come in feeling guilty because I need to take care of my child at home? And that's really when I got into corporations, was because, and it wasn't no one's fault. This HR director was really sweet, but I got called to HR several times. And this HR director is like, you have 2 options. You can either quit or we decrease your hours. I said, but that doesn't help me because all my insurance is under me and my son is in ICU for the past 10 days. Like, how is this even relevant? And Long story behind that, I did get some relief. My entire management team, thank you to that particular team, they gifted me 6 months of medical.
Wow.
But I've never seen that done prior, and that's only because I was scared to lose my job, and they realized that I was upstairs. They're like, "Is your son in the hospital?" I said, "Yeah, he's in ICU." And they're like, "Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I can't call in sick because I'm going to get called in by HR, and HR has no solution for me besides to quit or to reduce my hours."
That's crazy.
So 9 years ago, I knew we had to be better. I knew there's I'm not the only person that feels like this, where they have to work, they need medical, but there's no support at the same time. And then I developed a program. And that's where my entire mission has came in, helping parents with special needs feel the heard, feel valued, but not only parents with special needs, it's anyone that has those silent struggles that they're facing at home. And really bridging that, type of things into workplace and teaching them, like, if I'm able to bridge those silent struggles, your employers are going to come to work better. You're not going to have retention. They're going to come in because they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel respected. And it's like you're building a community. And to be honest with you, they're not going to go to healthcare, which is, even at the end of the day, let's be real, they don't need to go to healthcare a lot of the times, you know? And they're able to get serviced in a way where we're able to not treat them, but listen to them in a holistic approach. And that's like the best thing is that I teach them different modalities.
One of the things that I love about everything that you've said is that, because what happens is we as healthcare professionals, I'm a firm believer. This thing is the way that we have operated forever is not working. Number one.
No.
Number two. And we're not necessarily taught. It's like we have bad work ethic, okay?
Yes.
If we decide to call out because you as my job is not as important as my family, period. And I'm a firm believer, if people don't believe in God, that's the business I do. So it's God first, it's my family second, and then it's everything else. You get in when you fit in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is that, we have to be very intentional. And your model and my model are very similar in that I just wanted nurses to have the option, right?
Yes.
Because I am very clear on the fact that we are the largest profession in healthcare. We have the ability to heal healthcare.
Yes.
We have the ability to change the face of healthcare as we know it. We
Yes.
just gotta not be under the suppression of people who don't mean us well.
Exactly.
Your kid is in ICU and you are required to come to a job. No, that shouldn't even be an option, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be an option. And then, the HR people are going to call you in because they're short staffed because they don't have their stuff together, and I believe, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to leave the bedside. So I want to be very clear about that.
Absolutely.
But I am saying that we have to do things very differently now than we've done in the past. Otherwise, we're going to continue to face the same challenges that we have in the past.
Yeah.
And so until we get there, it's just going to be a hot mess like it is now.
Yeah.
So now you did that, and then you had two more babies.
Two more babies.
Two more babies.
Yeah.
And then when you had your two more babies, you dealt with similar challenges.
Yeah, I did actually. So my daughter was born and she's a diva. Like, let's be real. She's like she is a mini me, a complete mini me, a complete diva. And when when she was born, she had a lazy eye. And initially, like as she was growing up, all my kids wore glasses before the age of 1. And these doctors, like she would tell me as she was talking, comes in, it was about 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, she came to me and she goes, "Mommy, I can't see from my left eye." And I'm like, "What do you mean you can't see from your left eye?" I mean, this is a spunky girl. I mean, this girl is determined. Like she can hold her urine for 12 hours and will not pee when I was potty training her until she came home. Like the girl could be a surgeon. Like that's how determined this girl was. She would not pee in public. Okay. And so I believed her. And she was like, Bina, mommy, I don't see. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't see? And you can see her physically moving stuff to the right because she couldn't see from her left, or she was really clumsy. And then in kindergarten or in TK in kindergarten, she would only write on the right side. And I was like, well, this comes in. So I go back to the doctors, and they were just like, you know what? I think she's just being lazy. Or I think she's just being a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old at the time. And I said, you're coming, this is a pretty well, like, she's 5 going on 20. Like, I promise you, she can probably outsmart some of you guys, which she's just brilliant, right? I was like, I believe her. And it's not every day they come to me, mommy, I can't see. Like, why would they tell me that? Why would a 5-year-old tell me this? You
Right.
know? And so I did a lot of research, and I found this physician here in Dublin, California, and she did her prescription, and she told me, she's like, Bina, she is correct. She can't see out of her left eye. She has an eye processing disorder. And I was like, huh? What is that? And she goes, then I was like, please don't tell me I'm a nurse and I need to know this. Because in the ER, there's only 5 places people go in my world: the morgue, ICU, outside, in my ER, or the OR. That's it. Other than that, girl, I don't know where you go. Like that, I don't know. Okay. I can save your life. Um, and so she laughed. She's like, oh, I was gonna say that. I was like, please don't. So educate me as if I'm a 5-year-old child right now. And so she told me that her prescription level was so high that she is unable to see, and it was blocking the receptors in the back of her head. And because it was blocking the receptors in the back of her head, it wasn't processing. So her right side of the brain wasn't working. And I was like, oh, well, that's not good. And she goes, yeah, so all the processing, she was having all these tantrums. And so she's been going to therapy, eye therapy. Didn't even know that existed. Eye therapy. And she is now reading within 6 months. She started reading full books. She's reading both sides. So I went back to the doc. I went back to that doctor, and he's like, oh, and I gave him all the reports, and not to debunk them or to do things. It's just more to educate at this point, saying, hey, you know what? I would like to educate you on what an eye processing disorder is, because obviously you've missed this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I knew what that was. I'm like, but you dismissed my child. So now not only have had one doctor do this, I now have a second doctor doing this to both my older kids. And I was like, okay, we're on to something, because if this is happening to me as a respected nurse, a well-respected community member, I cannot imagine somebody else that's going through this without the fraction of the knowledge that I have. And they're just listening to these people. I'm just healthcare workers. I don't want to put a label on anybody. And it scares me on how dismissive they can be without, again, hearing. And all it goes back to is, please listen to what's in front of you. And it doesn't even have to be a client. It can be somebody you love. It goes back to that active listening. And then luckily with my third, they just believe me. They go, we'll just listen to you. I was like, please, he has severe ADHD. And he's also autistic. And luckily the doctor, I guess they must have labeled me in my chart that please listen to mom. Because now the third doctor that came up, she was just like, as soon as my son walked into the room, and he's running around, as ADHD children are all over the place, she was just like, yep, he's ADHD. I said, thank you. And I was like, you don't have to fight me? She goes, no. I was like, are you sure? She goes, why? I was like, because I've gotten fought twice already with both my elder kids. Like, I was ready to come in with like gloves on, like came in real strong. And she goes, no. Like, she goes, I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. But she goes, it's very clear that your son needs help. And that was probably the first time I saw healthcare after 5 years of, I was like, oh, maybe it is shifting. Maybe there is shift. Maybe there is a culture change that's happening, which if it is, thank you, and if it's not, I'm coming. We're going to break it.
One of the things that I really I like everything that you said when it comes to how you were there to be an advocate. One of the things that is really clear for me, because I had a patient that came in, she was pregnant, she was a young girl, She was pregnant. She just found out she was pregnant. She came in with abdominal pain.
Mm.
And of course, we do a pregnancy test. And she was like, oh, I didn't know I was pregnant. And she would like, this was her first pregnancy. And so the physician came in and he said, let's give her this medication. Well, I looked the medication up because it wasn't, being as I do, like in the emergency department, there are certain medications that are staples, right?
Right. Our
Like,
staple med. Yep.
yeah, they're staple medicines. We keep them in the
Yep.
Omnicell, like they are just, we give them all the time. So we have a pretty good knowledge. This particular medication, I had no knowledge of it, right? So I was
Right.
like, well, let me go and look this medication up. Medication was a pregnancy category D drug. I said, so I had a preceptee with me that day, and I said, so whenever he comes back around here, I said, we're going to politely say to him that we don't feel comfortable giving that medication. And so he came around there and I said, I don't feel comfortable giving that medication because it's a pregnancy category D, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, well, this will help her better than it. I was like, no, it won't. Okay, first of all,
Right.
I said, and I'm not giving the medication. You can take a pick, you can do whatever you want to do. But if he goes to someone else and he asks that person to give the medication, they'll be like, well, why didn't Viola give that medication? They be looking it up, and then they'll find out that the medication was not appropriate for the patient. At the end of the day, we have to be very intentional as nurses to be advocates for our patients inside of healthcare.
Yeah.
But not just that. Like outside, like our family members had to have that. And I'm so excited about what you're doing. You're going into these institutions and tell me exactly what you're doing within the institution.
Yeah. So with these large corporations, so Dome Construction is the first one that actually was able to, that got me on board. So I am 100% partnered with them. I am added into their added benefits, and it is a service that they are providing every single one of their employees as an added benefit. So they pay, and it's service to the benefit. Like the employees get access to me about wellness, and it's about transitions, about the silent struggles. And a lot of them, yes, I branched into it as with being, real life with special kids, a real life with, having, because there is no support. Like EAP is great, and I'm not bashing EAP at all, but it takes time.
And what is EAP? So
an employee assistant programs.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is I'm bridging them. I'm bridging that gap. I'm bridging that gap where people are able to get to our company lifetime. I guarantee somebody on a call within 48 hours. It's usually me or one of my staff members, and we're making them feel valued right then and there. And they only have to repeat their story once. That's it. And we're being present. And usually after 4 or 5 sessions, majority of the people feel serviced. They feel great. They're going through those transitions. We come up with a comprehensive plan, and we tell them. And a lot of the times they just want to be heard. 99% of the time, they just want to be heard. And some of them come up to us with a lot more complex conversations, and we're able to do that. We do not give any medical advice because we're not licensed professionals. I just have to state that out loud. We don't give medical advice, but we give support, and we teach them how to advocate, and we teach them how to educate, and we teach them the educational factors of things and slowing themselves down. Are you eating correctly? Are you sleeping right? Do you have firm agreements with whoever it is, with your relationship with your boss, your husband, or comes in? Do you have strong boundaries? And it goes back to those 5 key elements of just simplicity of life, learning to slow yourself down with the power of that pause. And a lot of the times is they just want somebody, and we're confidential. So they come to me with anything that they want, unless it's something that I'm licensed to state. So I have to remind people I am we are state licensed. So anything that is, considered a crime or child abuse, adult abuse, any of that, I do have to report those. But also just a lot of the times they just feel like they've gotten whatever they needed out, and they're able to move past that tragedy or that transition in life in a healed way. And they're not leaking what I call a leaking syndrome. They're not walking around work all pissed off all day long now. you know?
And that increases nurse retention.
Yeah.
That increases the retention of the nurse, and it also increases their ability to be able to cope within the workplace. And
And
it's a cultural thing, right? Because you can have the best strategies for taking care of patients. You can have the best strategies for taking care of your clients, but culture eats strategy for lunch.
yeah.
So if you have a bad culture within your organization, then your organization is going to struggle.
Yeah.
And so that's
And
huge.
and these are companies that, and I work with companies that are not even in the hospital. These are companies that are Fortune 500 companies that are not comes in. I've worked with many hospitals. Hospitals are a little harder because of the culture change. They're a little bit more, well, nurses eat nurses, let's be real. Well, I'm a nurse, I know this, and I got all these letters behind my name. Who are you coming in here? But I'm like, okay, that's fine. But it's also just knowing that that's what we're trying to change. That's
Right.
what we're trying to change on that. And these other Fortune 500 companies like Dome, Nvidia, Duarte, all these other ones, they're coming in from tech, storytelling, a construction company, right? Because they're valuing their employees, they're valuing their well-being, and they're valuing their mental health, along stating, like, you know what? You guys are allowed to talk to Nurse Coach Bina anytime throughout the day. Go ahead and take an hour off. We're not going to question you, and we actually support you.
And that's the key, right? That is the key.
Huge. All their employees. We've now gone through, what, 3 or 4 layoffs, and I still am present within these companies because they see the value of how I can help their employees feel heard. And it actually really does alleviate a lot off the HRs, because now HR is able to focus on their actual job, right? They're actually able to focus in on being competitive. They're able to focus in on being, assertive and trying to find people that they need to do. But now I've learned, even with like Dome Construction, there's a very low turnaround rate, not because of me, because I was able to help with that culture of, you feel valued, you feel heard, you feel respected. And if you don't, or if you're having a bad day, they all say, hey, go talk to Bina.
And one of the things that I'm very sure of is that as a leader, I remember I had a director of nursing, and this particular meeting I was not in, but I was walking past the door because we had this like this stairwell that went
Mhm.
down, and it was 2 doors that you could go through, right?
Mhm.
And I just so happened to be walking through the other door, and I heard what she said, and she said, "We are not here to make the nurses happy." I was like, "Well, what is your job?" Because you can't affect every patient. Your
No,
job is to affect the staff,
the
and
staff.
the staff will take care of your patients.
Right.
Period. And
That's
so at the end of the day, we have to be very intentional about that. And that's one of the things that, as it relates to leadership, that I had to learn, and had to learn really, really well. And so I'm super, super excited about what you're doing. So tell the people how they can get in contact with you.
Well, you can actually get in contact with me. Actually, the fastest way is probably now on Instagram, which is actually hashtag Nurse Coach Bina, which is on the screen.
I love
Yeah, I just started growing my Instagram account because I've learned that Facebook and stuff, they're so long trying to add to it. So I'm like, just have hashtag Nurse Coach Bina. Easier to find.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And so if they want to, and you're on Instagram, putting
Yeah.
out content for them. Okay.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. You can even go to my email, which is binanursecoach.com. But just because of the sake of the screen, it's easier to see. If you just do at Nurse Coach Bina on Instagram. If you follow me, send me a message. It is actually me in the DMs. It is really me messaging you back. It is not a robot. Or something else. It is me that I will connect back with you, because that's like the number one thing is, I want to hear your guys' stories. I want to be able to help. I want to be able to help you guys in these silent struggles, or even if you're able to connect me with your guys' HR department or wellness program for me to come into to help the entire company and to grow those companies, because then we are able to then help alleviate people going to the ER or the healthcare, the mental health side of things, which is so overwhelmed right now. And there's just not that much support out there, or lack of support, or lack of appointments, should I say.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, it has been such a pleasure. You are too funny. Like, I really, really have enjoyed this conversation because we're on the same mission, and
Yes.
we're gonna listen. It's gonna be a whole thing. So, again, I ask that you like, share, and comment on this podcast, the things that you liked, and also do we have a master class that's coming up. We have a master class every month pretty much. And so it's coming up here shortly. And so you can go to vpnursing.com to register for the master class. And of course, you can follow us on all social media channels. But it was a pleasure, Bina, and you have been absolutely phenomenal. And everybody have a great day.